Welcome to Canning 011.
Not to be confused with Canning 101.
No, Canning 101 is a much more advanced course where we actually can something.
Right.
This time we're just talking about the things that you're going to need to have on hand if you're going to undertake canning.
Right.
This is a basics video, which I haven't really seen one, that just covers how to get started, how to gather everything that you're going to need. Okay, so the first thing we have is just a group of neat utensils.
Right.
And this is, what is that?
It's a jar getter outer.
It's a jar getter outer because
we don't know what it's called, but
I'm
we've
sure
called it that for
it
years.
has a technical name like hot jar lifter, jar gathering equipment, but it's always been the jar getter outer. And if you're canning with your mom or anyone else and you say, "Where's your jar getter outer?" they seem to know what it is. So
right.
feel free to use that. Walk into Walmart and ask them if they have a jar getter outer. Do what you have to do. You want to become a canner.
Right.
Then this is a cool multi-tool.
Yes.
It is something that you'll need. A lot of foods that you put in jars with liquid, you have to get the air out, so you have this end of it.
Right.
The graduated end with the steps, you'll find out when you can and read in the Ball Blue Book that you have to have so much head space, and this is marked ½ inch, whatever. Set that on the edge of the jar, make sure your head space with your liquids is correct.
Right.
And then there's this cool thing. We have to pretend that we have a hot pan or a warm pan of lids that are soaking before you can. And not to get, this as a magnet, you can just grab it out of the pan. It usually comes out like this with 6 or 7.
Right.
But you get to where you get the feel for it. And that lets you set the
lid right on top of your jar. You use your finger to make sure it's in place.
And that's what that is.
Right.
Then you need a funnel, and this has a big hole, not like a regular small funnel. So you can set that on your jar and fill it full of green beans, corn,
tomatoes, anything.
peppers,
Yeah.
and not get your jar.
Right.
The one thing that Tracy did not bring to our Canning 011 video is the Ball Blue Book.
Right.
Considered the Bible of canning.
Right.
It gives you all of the latest edition of the Ball Blue Book, gives you all the safe ways to prepare your food, how to pick the right produce, how to prepare that, whether it needs to be pre-cooked or just put into a hot jar. The Ball Blue Book of canning and preserving is a very essential book, and we always work off of the latest edition so that we make sure that we're canning food that will be safe and doesn't make us sick.
That's right.
Stick around on the channel, though, because we're going to cover canning, dehydrating, preparing it for the freezer, and also freeze drying, which is the newest approved method of home preservation.
Right.
And those models are now available for home use, and we've got one coming that'll sit here, and we'll go over freeze drying as well as this. But today is Canning 011. So we've covered the basic supplies other than the most important thing.
We didn't cover that, but that's okay. We will.
We'll cover that.
Okay.
The most important thing is jars. Jars come in all shapes and sizes. You've got different mouth openings on them. Somewhere there is a can of chicken. There we go. So jars are the most essential function. These are also the most expensive part of canning now.
They are.
Used to be you could go pick up a flat of jars, which is a box of 12 jars for
$7.
$6, $7.
Right. Now they're $14, $15.
I've seen them have $16
Yeah.
and $17 for 12 jars.
Yeah.
They do come with a lid and a ring. That's a one-time use lid. But you've got your pint jars, you've got your quart jars, you've got your pint jars with wide mouth. You can see the difference in wide mouth is used for things like chicken that you need to be able to pack the jar and get it out easily. You have half pints, which this is some beautiful tomato sauce that Tracy made this year from our garden. And then you've got jelly jars, which are really 1/4 of a pint, I think.
I think so.
And that's blackberry jelly that Tracy made this year.
I think that's 4 ounces, 8 ounces, and on up 16.
Yeah, they go by ounces. And then
Yes.
you have this big behemoth, which is a ½ gallon jar.
Right.
Never, ever can in a ½ gallon jar.
Not approved.
You can't guarantee heat penetration in that much product, and they're not approved. No matter who tells you, it's not. We use things like baking soda. You can put egg noodles in them, put your dehydrated or freeze-dried peppers in them, keep them on the counter. They're a great storage jar, and you can vacuum seal those with food.
Right.
But they're not for canners.
No.
Now, Tracy will tell you about some of the products that you need. Well, I'll cover this first.
Yeah.
The lids, you use those once, and then you just buy lids. Sometimes they're hard to get, so don't wait till canning season to buy. They're a one-time use lid. A lot of people say you can reuse them. And I think if I were in a pinch, I might try it, but
There's no guarantee on them.
no guarantee. And then the bands, which are the rings that, and they usually come with a lid inside of them, but that's just a band. And this is, you don't need this other than when it's in the canner.
Right.
It's not needed. We keep all of ours on a string, and that's just one string. Tracy has hundreds of strings full of rings. So now Tracy's going to talk to you about some of the products that you're going to need to keep on hand if you're going to can and can a lot of things. So
the number one thing I use is canning salt. Pretty much everything requires it except for anything sweet like jellies. You do not ever use iodized salt when canning.
make sure that your salt has no iodine.
Lemon juice is the next big thing that I use, and that goes in all your tomato products. Anything that requires extra acid, that is your acid. Next is apple cider vinegar. Of course, certain pickles require that. The biggest one is white vinegar, and you always want to make sure that it's at least 5% because a lot of the grocery stores are selling 4%, and that will not work. When I'm making jellies, jams, Sure Gel, and yes, this is what makes it actual gel. And when you turn it upside down, it doesn't, just pour out.
Jiggles.
It jiggles.
Jelly.
Yes.
You know what jelly looks like. You get a spoon, you spread it on your toast.
Right.
It's thick. It's not rocket science, guys. This is not hard to do.
No.
And today is just an 11 course. We're not going to can anything today. We're just talking about the things that you need to have on hand so you kind of know what to prepare yourself in.
Right.
Tracy's going to take a few minutes and explain to you the first method of canning, which is the easiest and the most common method.
That would be the water bath canner. This is for any high acid foods, tomatoes, peppers, jellies, pickles. Pretty simple. It's got a nice rack in it. That
And
goes
the rack
there.
is designed to keep the jars off the bottom
Off the bottom of the
Don't-
pan.
Don't
Right.
can without your rack.
No. This rack goes there. Water starting out goes to about right here. And the reason why it goes to about right there is the water will be displaced as you put the jars in. And you want to end up with 2 to 3 inches of water over top of your jars. But what you end up doing is you bring the water to a boil, put your rack up here, take your jars, and this will hold 8. You put them around in a circle and stick one in the middle. If you have extra room and you don't have enough jars, you make sure that you put an empty jar or a jar full of just water, put it in with it to keep the jars from moving around during canning.
And keep your liquid up
Yes.
high enough. Because it has to cover the jars by about 2 inches
2
or
to
it's
3,
not going to
yeah.
be an improved
No,
canning
it
method.
won't.
She puts the rack in the bottom,
I do. The water is boiling.
and the jar getter outer doubles as a jar putter inner.
Yeah, it does.
Because this jar will be hot. This is going to be, hot liquid that's in there.
Right.
She picks the jar up. Of course, it'll have the ring on it. And she sets the jars into the canner
Right.
carefully.
You're going to put all of your jars in here with water boiling, 2 to 3 inches over top of the jars. You're just going to put a lid on it, and you want a slow rolling boil.
Because when you first put your jars in, the boiling quits.
Yeah, it does.
So you're going to set that on the stove with the lid on,
Right.
and listen for that boiling sound.
Right.
And it'll make a boiling sound.
Yes. Once it starts boiling, then you're going to set a timer.
Hey Siri, set a timer for
You're right.
different things require different times, so we
They
can't
do.
cover the times.
No. After your timer goes off, you're going to let this quit boiling. You're going to turn it off, let it quit boiling, take a lid off, and you're going to take the jar getter outer, get your jars out, and we always use like a drying mat. You
drying
can
mat
use
or
a
a towel.
towel on your counter and sit them out 2 inches apart, so they have time, so they can
Well, they'll cool
cool.
quicker.
Yeah.
Because if you put them right beside each other,
It's retaining
it
heat.
holds that heat.
Right.
And it takes longer for the process to cool down.
You simply set them out on the towel, walk away, come back in the morning, and look and see, make sure that the jars have sealed. What?
You're never going to be able to do it.
I know.
Especially if you're new at canning.
Yes.
Because this
You're
jar, hear it? That lid is raised up. That's the way they start.
Right.
After you take them out of the canner, they're still going to be raised up. But as they sit there and start to cool, you'll hear it go
Ping.
ping, and those pop down. Hear that? That one's sealed. To the point I probably can't open that with my thumbs without causing myself some level of pain.
Right.
You got to use a jar opener. Never, ever, while they're sitting there up, touch it to see if it'll go down, because that's not telling you truly if it's sealed.
It's not.
So that's the basics of water bath canning. It's the safest method of canning. It's pretty cut and dry.
The jars themselves should be sterilized. Some dishwashers have a sterilization cycle, but if you don't, you can take the jars, put them in boiling water, and boil them for 10 minutes.
After you wash them.
After you wash them. Make sure you wash them.
And put a little bit of bleach in your wash water. Okay, so that's water bath canning.
Yep.
In the interest of keeping this video moving along so we don't bore you, we're going to cover the scary canner. Some people aren't scared by it, but a lot of people do not want to start pressure canning because
They're intimidated.
they've heard the horror stories.
Right.
My grandma was cooking with the pressure canner and it exploded and tore her head off, and she had to spend the rest of her life with no head on. Unless you just don't pay attention, that you have anything to fear.
No.
We pressure can all the time. Pressure canner's simple, and I've gotten really good at this. Tracy's not even going to get to laugh at me this time, because I struggle with the stupid lid all the time.
He does.
Pressure canner is basically 3 components. You've got your main cooking pot. This has a rack just like that because you do not want your jars right on the bottom. It gets really hot. And it works the same way as the water bath canner, except how much water do we put in this one?
No, you only put about 3 inches of water in that.
2 to 3 inches of water in the bottom.
Yeah.
It doesn't cover the jars.
Right.
We'll put a link to this because this canner right here, this old beat up one, we've been canning with for over 15 years.
Yeah.
This gasket has been in this canner since it was new.
Yep.
15 to
Yep.
17 years, I don't know. We keep one on hand. You want to make sure that your gasket's in good shape, that it's not compressed anywhere and stuck, dried, cracked, anything like that. We've yet to replace the gasket in this canner, and there's been years that we approached 1,000 jars of food canned in this very canner.
But you definitely want to check it every time.
This seal, this is the little blowout. You see it here. If the pressure gets too high, that blows first. This is the little pop-up thing that tells you it's under pressure. That doesn't really have a seal. So there's 2 seals that you want to keep, this one and that one. Look for any dry rotting or cracking. Other than that, this canner is completely safe. And all you, dang it, man, I knew I had this. There's an arrow here and an arrow here. If you line those up, the canner is now sealed.
Right.
Now, I'll put a link in below to Amazon to this very canner because this is a 23-quart Presto, and I highly recommend it. It's a great canner to start canning with.
It is.
And I don't know that you'd switch to another canner after using it. We, as we said earlier, we can almost everything in pint jars.
Yes.
The best thing about pint jars in this canner is you can stack them. So instead of having 9 jars in the bottom of the canner, when you stack them, you can put 18 pints in this canner at one time.
Right.
Now, if you're new to canning or you just got started or you haven't yet, the amount of time the pressure cooker takes having 18 jars in there at one time is a benefit. Now, if you're doing quarts, it's 9.
Right.
So we'll talk about how the pressure canner works. We talked earlier about the water bath canner, and when water starts to boil, it can't get hotter than boiling point. It just continues to boil, and it boils at boiling temperature for 40 minutes on tomatoes.
Right.
Now, green beans are pressure canned. Chicken, this is chicken. Tracy canned this chicken, and I mean, just look at it. Anything you pressure can becomes fork tender. Now, the pressure canner actually takes your food to a temperature higher than boiling point because that small amount of water in the bottom gets to boiling. Under pressure, it starts to relieve steam, but you're going to choke that steam down, so the temperature far exceeds the boiling point. So it's heating your foods well above the boiling point. I don't even know.
I don't even.
I'm guessing 260, 270 degrees probably in
Probably.
the steam. Now, the process with a pressure canner is, once that lid is sealed, your jars are all in there, you've got your 2 to 3 inches of water, you've got your lid sealed down. You want to start building pressure. Steam will start to come out of this vent. Once steam comes out of that vent,
You're going to wait 10 minutes.
10 minutes of watching steam come out of that vent.
Right.
Not going to build a lot of pressure. It may go to 4 pounds or 3 pounds because it's choking.
Maybe.
Then you have a weight. Ours is a 15-pound weight. That doesn't actually weigh 15 pounds.
Before, or yes. Go ahead.
Was there something
I'm
you
getting
wanted to
ahead of
add?
myself. No.
She does. She's already done. She's eating the food. I haven't even canned it yet. Once that has steamed for 10 minutes, then you take your weight. And like I said, ours is a 15-pound weight. Anything below 1,000 feet in elevation, you can with 10-pound weights.
Right.
Most things.
Right.
Follow the ball blue book, it'll tell you, know your elevation. We're at nearly 3,000 feet here, so everything's 15 pounds. Then you pop that on there. Be careful because steam is hot. Then the pressure is going to start to build, okay? And it'll go up, and you want to adjust your flame. This will pop up first. She's ahead of me again. I'm going to hand this over to her. Your pressure is going to build. If it's building really fast, cut your heat back.
Yeah.
And after you've pressure canned 1 or 2 times, you're going to know
About where
your stove's going to be set at, whether it's electric or gas. And when we get to 15 pounds, this has already popped up. When it gets probably 5 pounds, 4 pounds, this will pop.
No, actually, it pops before it starts building pressure at all.
Yeah, and then when that's up, you can't touch the can. Well, first of all, it's got pressure, it's hard to open.
Right.
Once it reaches 15 pounds with a 15-pound weight, you'll start to get that
Jiggle.
jiggle. And it's just be venting steam. Now, different things take different times. So once that reaches 15 pounds for us, or 10 pounds if you're below that elevation, that's when you start your timer. Hey Siri, I'm doing chicken, so start me a timer for 70 minutes. That's 1 hour and 10 minutes that it takes to process meat at our altitude in this canner.
Right.
The Ball Blue Book will tell you. But that's the process of pressure canning. It just brings things under pressure, but it makes the temperatures hotter than boiling because it's steam, and steam is hotter than boiling water.
Right.
And it does its thing. And then Siri goes do-do-do-do-do-do-do, or however Siri or Google does that,
Right.
and your time's up. At that point, don't touch this. Turn your heat off, walk away. This will all start to come down. Don't remove this. This has popped up. Don't push it. Did that one time. Tracy didn't. All the food went in the refrigerator, and she wouldn't trust it. Your gauge will start to come down, and it's going to sit on 0, guys. And this is still going to be popped up. Don't touch it. Let it do its thing. When it goes chink, it's a happy moment.
Yes.
Because then you can open your pressure canner.
Your thing
Yeah,
off.
this will be off. Thank you, Tracy, for getting ahead of me. Now remember, you're cooking with steam. It's in there. So when you open your canner, don't open it this way. Or you're going to get a face full of steam, and you're going to get burns. Open it from you, and don't step back when you're wearing flip-flops. I have never, but the word on the street is, it'll burn the tops of Tracy's feet and make her dance. And, where's her? Look like Brad Pitt in that movie.
Yeah.
Luckily, it didn't blister her, but it should have.
Yeah, it should have. It was hot.
You're going to have this thing, and it's going to be dripping wet, and you're going to want to know what to do with it. Just set it off to the side somewhere out of the way.
Yeah, just make sure it doesn't fall off the counter.
And then take your jar getter outer, and one by one take your jars out, and they're hot.
They're hot.
Very hot in the
They're
pressure
boiling. You can see it
canner.
boil
Yeah, when you
inside.
pull it up like that, water is still boiling inside that jar.
Yes.
And set it on your towel. Like she said, same thing with the water bath canner. Set them a couple inches apart. They're going to boil, and they're going to ping. Either method of canning, if they do not ping by the time you're out of bed the next morning, put them in the refrigerator, and those are your instant consumption.
They say that you can re-can them, but
I mean, you went through the trouble of picking these or picking them up at your favorite little farm stand. Go ahead and put them in the refrigerator and cook them for dinner tomorrow evening. You went through the effort. They're going to be good.
exactly.
Just like you remember your grandma made them. Make sure when you're done with either canner, wash everything. If you cook chicken in this, your canner is liable to smell like chicken.
It will.
because there is a little bit of the liquid that escapes out and the steams and vents. Make sure that you wash everything
Really
good.
well.
Put it up. We don't typically store ours with the lid sealed,
No, we don't.
because then any moisture is trapped in there. Line the arrows up. Any moisture that's in there would stay trapped in there.
Yeah,
We just leave it cracked where it can vent.
right.
But that's the basics of it. That's it. You have anything you want to add?
Have fun with it.
Have fun.
Yeah.
And be safe.
Yes, yes.
Subscribe to the channel. Look
Yep.
for the links below, because we'll put links to the things that we use, because I'm frugal. I don't want to pay full price for anything. We're going to cover canning, cooking, freezer preparation to freeze things longer term so they don't freeze or burn as fast and taste bad, dehydrating, different sealing methods, and then the freeze dryer when it comes
Right.
from Harvest Right. So that's it. I'm out. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to be notified for new episodes,
Give us a
because we're going to
thumbs
give us a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video, and we will catch you in the next one, which we'll change this to Canning 101, and we're going to actually prepare and put some food in jars and can it, and we'll have a few canning episodes, and then we're moving on to dehydrating and freeze drying,
Right.
and mixing canning back and forth.
Yep.
Leave a comment and let us know what you think. Thanks, guys.
Have fun.